Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. Again, this is the client guest show. My main purpose is to help my clients grow, get exposure. I think I only work with incredible humans. I try and make sure that I only work with incredible humans. And so when I have the opportunity to lift them up and help other people see how incredible they are, then I want to. So that's why I started this section of the Fuel Your Legacy show, is to help other people see how incredible of humans that I get to work with every day and get the same inspiration that I get when I show up to work. Like for me, working's fun because I get to work with awesome people like Kacie Thompson-Fuller. I mean, how awesome do you have to be to have 2 last names? It's pretty awesome, right? Like,
yeah, only the elite get it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have 2 last names. You might think so because it's so freaking long, Knickerbocker, but it's all one word, where she has 2 last names, hyphenated, Thompson-Fuller, and her first name's incredible as well. In fact, I always spell your first name wrong. I don't know why. I think I always think there should be a Y in it, but there's not. So go look at her name, just fall in love with her name. But honestly, by the end of this, you're going to fall in love with her and what she does and how she could help you, which is why I'm so excited. So she is an income building realtor. She's not into just selling homes. She wants to help you get into a home that's going to help you gain more income in your life and ultimately have the lifestyle you want. She also is a owner at a Sugar House doula. So she's a doula. She loves the idea of birth and helping people have a healthier system there. And she also works with a group called La Leche League, which I'm going to let her explain what that is. But just really quick, Kacie, I'm just curious. Tell us the story. I don't even remember when we first met, but tell the story of when you first saw me or met me and what your first impression of Sam was.
Sure. I met Sam in January of 2020 at an event that was hosted by the Next Gen team. And Sam was a keynote speaker there. And I was blown away by his knowledge. And I had never heard anyone like provide that sort of a framework before. And it just blew my mind. So he was genuine and like very interesting and really energetic and like participated actively in who his clients were. And when I introduced myself to him, he was like, yeah, I'm ready to like help you get clients who are in your, like, who are going to be benefited by your services. And so he just was an all around supportive guy.
Awesome. I'm curious, has your opinion of me gotten better or worse now that you know me for almost a year now? Like, what's your opinion of me? Because that's like more of a professional, supportive setting. What's like, who's Sam really? If you had to say, oh, this is who Sam is really, who's Sam really now that you know me a little bit better?
I think, and I kind of knew this about you the first time we met, but it really like cemented over the last year that you are a person who just like has this radical acceptance of people and like meeting them where they are. And I just thought that is really awesome. So
interesting. See, I love that. I love that. Thank you for letting me know how I'm viewed by others. Cause I never know. Sometimes I think I know. And then people are either too scared to tell me. I keep asking people, I want somebody to be like, I hate you now. Like really tell me how they really feel about me. But I like the good feedback. One day I'm going to get somebody on here who's like, I really don't like you. And that's okay. You know, I totally,
okay.
I'm bracing.
Sorry, it's not today.
No, it's all good. I mean, I like to be liked, but I'm okay if you don't like me as well. It's all good here. So how did you get I love how broad of things that you're interested in. And little known secret, honestly, when I first met Kacie, this was like our first conversation. She's like, oh yeah, I don't have a car, or I went like a year without a car. And I was like, what? How do you live in Utah and you just don't have a car? Like, that's so, I would die. I hate not having transportation. She's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I just Ubered everywhere. I'm like, nah, like I couldn't do it.
I biked everywhere.
Oh,
I biked everywhere. But I did take Ubers if it was too far or if the weather was bad. So
either way, I mean, she's a mom, guys. She's not like this single woman who lives in this uptown apartment.
I did.
Whatever.
I hauled my kids on my e-bike pretty much everywhere for a long time. It was, it was one of those things where my family and I were making a lot of sacrifices in order for me to have the flexibility to do what I wanted to do, which was spend more time with my children. And that was one of the sacrifices that we made. It was challenging to learn how to like restructure my time management as far as like, I gotta leave 45 minutes early to get downtown instead of 20 minutes early. But really, once that learning curve was over, I kind of adjusted to it, and it was not a big deal. My kids were way happier on the bike than they were in the van. So there was less fighting. We got there, wherever we ended up going, they got there. And, like when you get your kids in and out of the car and they're like crabby about it and they don't want to get out and they drop their things and all of the drama that can ensue in a car ride, it was non-existent. They just were like looking around and feeling the wind on their face, and just like they got where we were going, like happy and peaceful. It was awesome. So
yeah, I think that is one thing that I think it leads into what you do for your clients and how you interact with your clients. But Kacie's not my impression of you now. I can share that. She, of course, first time I met her, shows up professional, excited about what she does. There's no question there. But the more you get to know Kacie, the more I think, man, she is somebody who I totally look up to and respect as somebody willing to do hard things, but is also living a completely purpose-driven life. Like, she got rid of her car so she could spend more time with her kids and give them a different experience that most aren't going to have, And so it's that type of just absolute commitment to your dreams and to the purpose and to having this certain family life and existence that you want that most people aren't willing to do, myself included. Like I have to force myself to go camping. And it's like, I have to work up to it. Give me a few weeks so that I can go give my kids the experience of being outdoors, because I don't like to be uncomfortable. Like, I don't have a car so that my kids can get where places quicker. I have a car because I want to get where I want to go faster. And it's just convenient that my kids get to ride with me. And so to be willing to put some of the things that maybe it's nice to have on the back burner so that you can prioritize the experience and the lifestyle of living and having those deeper relationships. That's not just like one story. Kacie does that over and over and over and over in all aspects of her life. And she likes to work with people and help them get to the point where they can do the same thing. And it's not always going to look the same. Not everybody who works with Kacie is getting rid of their car. Maybe, I don't know.
No,
but probably not.
No, so far zero.
Yeah, so far zero. But the point is, she is somebody who understands, and she can put her money where her mouth is when it comes to like having a value conversation and saying, hey, where do you want to end up and what are you willing to do to get there? And she puts her money where her mouth is, and she actually like does those things to get to where she wants to get to. And I just completely honor and respect that aspect. And I look up to you a ton in that. And I have a lot to learn, because something that I struggle with sometimes. I love my little pampered Sam shell so much that I don't want to get out of it. But I know that you force people out of it or force yourself out of it. And it's an inspiration to me for sure. So go ahead and tell your story about how you got into real estate and why you're so passionate about this concept of income building real estate rather than just let's go buy some homes or let's go buy our first home. Like, why are you so passionate about the specific area of real estate that you do?
Sure. my interest in real estate started when I was a renter still. I had this just awful landlord who was the worst. I'm talking like won't clean up black water backup in my tub after I just had a baby level nightmare. And I just thought, this woman is the worst. And I could totally take care of a house better than she could. And if I ever had tenants, I would be there. Like, I would get professionals. I would make sure that they felt like they were getting their money worth out of the amount that they were paying for rent. And realized that I was sort of at a transition point in my life, as far as I just had a baby, decided I wasn't going to go back to work, that I really wanted to have a couple of years with my children while they were young. And so in order to replace my missing income, we decided to purchase a duplex. And that duplex has just transformed our lives. We had the flexibility to be able to do what we wanted to do and to really like build the life that we wanted and have the relationships that we wanted. So that gave us flexibility for so many years. And not everyone wants to stay home with their babies, nor should they want to. But people have goals, and having an income property really can help people achieve whatever it is that their goal is. If their goal is to see more of the world, or to help their family members, or to pay for their education, whatever it is that their goals are, having income from a property is transformative.
Yeah, I love that. So two things that I heard, and I think that's important, is one, recognition of like, what are your gifts? What are the things that you do? You recognize, and this is a thing, so many people, I don't want to say they complain about other people in life, but they recognize, I could do that better than that's being done in somebody else's life. And that's, in my mind, there's two ways to look at that. There's a way to look at that as like, I could do that better and move on, or there's some money sitting there. Yeah. Right?
That's exactly it.
There's some, if you recognize, if you're going through your life and you recognize, I can do that better than that person's doing it. Now the only question is, could I do that better than that person's doing it at a price point that they'd be willing to pay me to do it?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then there's money there. People walk around thinking, there's no money. I need a job. I can't get work. Look, anytime you walk around and you see somebody doing something that you think you can do better than they can, there's money.
I feel like that is how, that specific feeling is how you can identify where your like true value lies. When you can see a gap somewhere and be like, I could fill that. I could do that. That's how you can identify like where the specific parts of life that you'll fit in are. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that you're not going to love doing every gap that you can fill. Okay. So like that's another thing, but you may as well try them all out, and you know what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. And what also comes with the recognition of, hey, I can do that better than somebody else. On a humility perspective, also comes when somebody comes to you and says, hey, I can do this better than you. You're no longer offended, because you're like, yeah, I see these things all the time that I can do better than somebody else. So when somebody comes and says, hey, I can clean your house better than you can, how about you pay me $10 and I'll come in and clean it? You're like, yeah, sure.
For sure. Yeah, you should totally do that.
I mean, you had an experience with a sister of mine with bookkeeping, right? Where you probably can do bookkeeping. You probably don't love bookkeeping. And when she was able to show you what she can do for the price point, you're like, yeah, this makes sense. You can do it better than me with less stress. Like, my time with my family, with everybody, is more valuable doing what I love doing than doing that. And so that made sense to say, offload that. But I think that that's a huge thing, is recognizing not being offended. It happens to me all the time. My biggest weakness, if you ever want to help Sam or add value to Sam's life, grammar is Sam's on the bottom of his list as far as skills go. And so people all the time will tear apart. I say tear apart. They will nitpick my social media posts. I'm like, you said this word wrong. You didn't put a comma. You should have listed whatever. And they'll message me privately, and I know people who, when they get corrected that way, they get super offended that they're being corrected publicly, on a public post. And my response is always like, hey, thank you so much. In fact, if you see anything else in the future, please just let me know as soon as possible so I can go and correct it. Right.
Right.
If you're
free
willing
editing
to accept
service.
help,
Awesome.
yeah, exactly. Free editing service. If you're willing to accept help, life gets so much better and more, like, there's so much more love and fulfillment when you're willing to accept help than if you're like, no, don't help me. Don't help me. I can't believe you tried to help me. And it's like, just accept it. Just be like, oh, thank you so much. So I love that.
This is improving my life. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one skill. Again, these small things that I see in Kacie that I super look up to, which is why I wanted to have her on the podcast, because they're these small things that I think can really benefit everybody's life, no matter what their role is, whether you're a mother, a father, a child, a brother, sister, a business owner, a colleague, an employee. It doesn't matter. Like, they're these small beliefs and mindsets that can set you up for major wins in life and get you in the right room with the right people because of the type of person that you become. The other thing that I wanted to point out here, and we kind of talked about this at the beginning, but goals first, direction when it comes to your financial decisions. I mean, this is huge, guys. Like, well, I want to spend time with my kid. How do I make sure that happens? How do I make sure that this is in the right position? Okay, well, I need to go get a home then. What if all of your choices, all of your purchases were based on the lifestyle that you wanted rather than what you thought other people wanted? So talk about that for a second to the audience of, if we were to create value-based financial decisions, how much more fulfillment and joy do you have in the life that you're living?
I think it leads to a ton more fulfillment. I focus with my clients on making sure that the home purchases that they make are goals driven, and that the purchases are going to serve them in the future and help them achieve their goals. So, like, I have one client who I just closed with, and he doesn't own a car. He values biking and public transportation, but he also wanted to be able to Airbnb some rooms in his, and we were able to find, like, zero in on properties that would help him meet all of the needs that feed into his goals, so that his home purchase then is supportive instead of something that will drag him down, that he has to meet the needs of the house instead of the house meeting his needs. So we ended up finding him a house that was literally like 90 steps from a track station. and it's like a perfect setup where there was already like a kitchenette in the basement, so he can have it ticked all of the boxes. And then I have a new client who I'm just starting working with, and his values are, he runs a small business. It's a welding business. So he has a lot of trailers that he has to park and a lot of equipment. So he kind of needs a shop. So we are making sure that we're looking at properties that are going to fulfill his needs and be supportive of his business.
Yeah, I love that, because a lot of people, and I've looked for a house once and I'm back on the hunt again up in Idaho. But so many people, and this is pretty much how I looked at it. I don't know, completely, a little bit. I knew that I wanted a townhome for my first home because I didn't want to do yard work, because I wanted to focus more on my business. And so I wanted to be somewhere where all of my yard work, everything was taken care of, while I was focusing on building my business. When we sold our house and moved into a rental, same thing. I don't want to be somewhere that's going to require me to do the upkeep, because I want to build my business. So it's a little similar, but a lot of people, they're looking at their home, they newlyweds or whatever, and they're just like, well, this is the next step in life to go get a home. Their parents said, you need to go get a home. You need to be a homeowner. So then they just go buy any home based on just the idea, well, I need a home. So that's one area. And then they're primarily price shopping. They're like, how much square footage can I get for the home that I want? And then they get the home. And I know lots of people like this. They get the home because they were just looking at square footage for price. And they're totally unhappy being there. They're like, man, I wish I lived somewhere else. I can't believe that I'm so far away from the freeway. I hate the drive, right? But that's not what they were thinking about when they bought the home, because they were so dialed in on just like square footage for dollar value. And it's okay. Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's just most people, they're doing that subconsciously, and they're not actually happy with their purchase after once they've been there for 2 or 3 months and they realize, oh man, this is not what I wanted.
Yeah, I met an esthetician once who, she and her husband had purchased an orchard. Like they bought the house and they're like, this house is perfect. We're going to live in this house. It's on like a half an acre. And I was like, well, how's the orchard going? And she was like, we hate it. And I was like, well, like whoever sold you that house, like should have helped you think through all of what this was going to look like and like really help you see if it was going to align with your goals and if it was going to be something that was going to be beneficial to you, or at least like to have provided you with the professional support to help you be able to like lease out that part of the orchard to someone who did want to care for the orchard instead of you like just letting it be wild and untamed in your backyard for years. Like it could have helped you reach your financial goals instead of dragging you down.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I mean, there's so many things that I'm not going to personally tell you about Kacie, but this one thing I will tell you from a concept perspective, because she just mentioned it, giving you maybe you still want the property, but you just want the professional support of, hey, this is somebody who can maintain the orchard, and this is what it'll cost. Will be your benefit. Mm-hmm. So the cost benefit analysis of having an orchard, it's not a bad investment to have an orchard. Maybe rent it out to Harwards or one of these fruit stands and say, hey, do you want a business? Here's the orchard, pay me X amount of dollars of rent for the land or whatever, and it's all yours. You take all the profits, just pay me my $500 a month, which is like nothing. Mm-hmm. And here's the orchard, like undersell it, but it's an extra 500. But that's the thing. Kacie is going to go above and beyond. And even if it means taking a little bit longer to help you find the right thing, or sometimes even covering some of those costs to find the right professionals, she's going to make sure that you're in the best position for you that you can be in. And that not enough realtors do that. Most realtors, they just want a quick in and out. Let's get it done. I'm just looking for my 3% paycheck at the end of this deal. And that's just not who Kacie is. And I love that that's not who she is. She's really there to help you and do and get what you want out of it. And that's what I just love it. It's so cool. So tell us a little bit about, because I know these two separate things, but you also have other passions, other hobbies.
I do.
One is being a doula, which maybe you make some money from. I don't know what doulas get paid. And then you also volunteer. So my assumption is you don't get paid at the La Leche League, which is not at all. I mean, if you know Spanish, maybe it's what it sounds like, but it's not what I thought of it at the very beginning. So explain what those are and why you're passionate about those. Because these are what make up who Kacie is. Yes, she helps people with real estate because she loves it and she's passionate about it. But there's other aspects of her that kind of make her a whole complete human, mother, partner in life for her awesome husband. Go into some detail about those as well.
Sure. So really all of my work and volunteer work really ties back into my belief that people who are at transition points in their life are deserving of support. So really all of my work is pretty much the same. I'm helping home buyers transition into property ownership, or I'm helping people buy investment properties and transitioning into that investing world, or I'm helping new families become parents, bring home their first or additional babies. And then at La Leche League, I also help moms transition to learning how to breastfeed. So I have been a doula since 2013 and really love the part-time nature of the work. And And I loved being invited into such a pivotal moment in people's lives. That really it just flabbergasts me that people think that people want to have me there on those huge days. And it's really humbling to know that I have something to offer them, and that they want me there. And I just really appreciate getting to be a part of people's lives on those days. So
I love that. The idea of when people are in transition, that they're worthy of support. That's such an awesome worldview. I have like my chorused worldview that guides everything in my life and everything I do. This podcast, the endless hours of just sitting and counseling with people who are struggling, my journals that I write, everything comes from my core belief that your purpose is, as far as like, you were created to be a creator. And that every moment of our life, we're either creating or we are responding as a victim to outward circumstances. And my mission in life is to help people create what they want rather than react to life and end up with what they don't want. So that's my core belief, and my core, like, this is why everything I do in my life can connect directly to that, from religion, family, business, charity. Everything connects back to a creative, like a orientation of helping people see their value as a creator. And I love that your core, like the thing that you want to just have an impact on, the legacy, you could say, is to help people know that they're worthy of support in transition. It doesn't matter what transition that they're in. That could be a really crazy transition, from an abusive relationship to healthy relationship, from drugs to being sober, from alcohol to being sober, from non-ownership to baby to divorce to whatever. Like any type of transition, you're worthy of support. You don't need to hide and pretend that you're okay,
right?
But that you're worthy of support. Like I love that concept, and that from everything I know about Kacie, adequately describes her in a nutshell. I didn't know that, but now that you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
completely. So I love that. And breastfeeding is not easy. I mean, not that I've really tried it myself, but I grew up, I'm the 7th of 11 kids. So I grew up with my mom breastfeeding, and all my siblings, they breastfeed their kids, and it looks not very difficult. Like it looks like, oh, you just put the baby there, latches on and starts sucking, and good job. Right? Mm-hmm. It's not that simple for some reason.
It's not. I could talk about breastfeeding all day, but it's actually a learned behavior. So it's not something that comes instinctually. So women who are separated from viewing breastfeeding their whole lives can have a really challenging time learning how to do it, because it's a learned behavior.
I didn't know that. I could also talk about boobs forever, but for different purposes. You talk about like the actual function. I talk about other aspects, other functions. Okay. Other functions. No. Other functions. Yeah. The reality is, I'm just real, and people who like me, and people who don't, and they're like, "Oh, Sam's a little weird. He's dirty." I'm like, whatever. I'm Sam.
A little bit, but that's okay.
Well, I'm just.
We like you anyways.
If people don't like it, then they can choose not to listen, choose to do something else with their time. I don't know.
It's so true. They are just like every other part of our body, a multi-useful tool.
Yes. Yeah, that's a nice way of putting that.
Just like hands.
Just like hands.
Hands can be pretty sexual too.
Oh, hands, feet.
Nobody blinks twice at them. They're out all the time.
Yeah, what the heck?
I know.
I love it. So when you were making the transition to, you're buying this rental, which is fine, but what was like who are your biggest naysayers? Were there naysayers who kind of pushed back when you decided to transition your lifestyle into more focused on what you want rather than what other people would value, like having a car, living with neighbors that are underneath you or above you, whatever, right? Like that's a very specific lifestyle that you're choosing into. And there's lots of people who would just look at that and be like, I could never do that. Just like, I mean, I said the same thing to you. I could never get rid of my car. I don't like, it's just not something I would ever choose to do. I can't imagine myself ever choosing to do that. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just not me. But some people would judge or look at your lifestyle and say, oh, she doesn't even have a car. Oh, she has to live with neighbors. She's not wealthy enough to have her own house and have a separate rental if that's what she wanted to do. So, I mean, there's people who are going to judge those things. Who are your biggest naysayers when you chose to make those transitions? And how did you just focus on what you wanted rather than what they thought should be?
That's a good question. Probably the biggest naysayers were from like my extended family. As far as when I was purchasing the rental, they were like, you're going to get terrible tenants. Like you're going to have all this drama. It's going to be really difficult. But I feel like I have had incredible tenants over the course of my rental. A lot of that I think stems from people who are willing to live on the premises with the landlord are inherently a high quality tenant. So that's one thing that has worked in my favor. And then as far as transitioning to working as a realtor and teaching other people how to use this specific set of skills, probably my biggest naysayers, all again, my family, my extended family, not a lot of the women in my family work. And let me think about how to say this the right way. Because I did and do value my time with my children so much, as evidenced by all of the choices that I've made in the past. They didn't see how that could transition into quote unquote leaving my children for a career. And as my children's priorities have shifted over there, they just need less time with me. They're just as happy with a babysitter. This is kind of a weird year to launch a new business, but in general, it's been going well. I think also it'd take a little bit of time for them to adjust to, even though dad was home, that I was leaving, I was going to work more than I had been before when I was just running my doula business. And it was a little sad for them. I think but they've adjusted to it. So.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's important to recognize, talk about the impact of what some of these choices have on the people around us. And again, I think for me, at least, most naysayers, they aren't naysayers because they want you to fail. They're naysayers because they love you and they don't want you to fail. They want you to be safe and secure, and they want to partially, they know that inside of themselves, if you were struggling, they would want to help you. So that belief that they would want to help you conflicted with, well, I don't really have either the means to help her, or I don't really want to give her money. So she should probably just keep doing what she's doing to maintain status quo. Something that I try to keep in mind when people are naysayers is that it's most of the time when people are saying things to you, it's not usually about you. It's usually about them and their fears and their worries, and they're sort of projecting those out onto you. But knowing that whatever people are saying it's not really about you. It's about how they feel inside about themselves or the situation. And that doesn't really have much of an impact on how I make my decisions anyways. Yeah. And I think that's a good sign of that's a sign of a good leader when leadership is not necessarily how somebody makes you feel, like how at the end of your leadership, how they feel about you, whether you're a good leader, but being a good leader is more about how they feel about themselves when they're done witnessing you or being led by you. And that's another thing that Kacie's phenomenal at, is she's doing what she's doing. So, and she's leading from the front. She is almost a self-support, and she makes sure that she has the support in transition, and she faces transition boldly. And almost my perception is she looks for transition because she likes transition phases, but that may or may not be true. But she does transition.
It's probably true. It's probably true.
Probably addicted to transition and uncertainty.
Probably.
I'm somebody who is addicted to uncertainty as well, which is okay. But what's nice is when you have that type of leader, then when somebody who's feeling a little bit uncertain, when they're going through that uncertainty of transition, and there's somebody who's very comfortable in uncertainty, then that can actually help that individual feel more comfortable. And again, that's the sign of good leadership. She is helping them feel better about themselves through that process and through that uncertainty, and giving them that extra confidence that they need to make it through to the other side, and become successful at whatever it is they're doing, whether that's breastfeeding, having a baby, buying a home, moving. I mean, there's so many things that go, those are like the top of the mobiles. And then there's all of the stressful things that happen because of it. I mean, my wife, Kacie knows Charlie. Charlie, when we go on a trip, the first day and a half, and maybe a day leading up to it, is just constant running through her mind, all of the worst case scenarios that could go bad and wrong. And that's that uncertainty of like, oh, well, if we don't get to bed on time, then the kids aren't going to get to bed on time. Then they're going to be grouchy and they're going to be hungry, and all these worst case scenarios. And it's okay to play. I'm okay playing the worst case scenarios out. In fact, in my mind, I do it all the time. The difference is I just get okay with the worst case scenario really fast, and then move on and start thinking about the best case scenario. It's not that I'm oblivious to the worst case scenario. It's just I choose not to focus on the worst case scenario. And that's what somebody like Kacie can help you do, is say, okay, yes, she's comfortable with the worst case scenario. She's already been down that route herself. And then as you're going through and you're the one who's super concerned about all the worst case scenarios, she can put your mind at ease and help you make it past those, and focus on the best case scenario outcome.
Yeah. I had an experience recently with some clients. They were supposed to close on a specific day. The sellers of the home were supposed to sign the day before because they were, the husband was out of state. And so we signed the morning of closing, thinking that the sellers had signed the day before. And my clients had, with all the optimism that exists with first-time homebuyers, booked movers for later that day. And we didn't find out that and funding and recording is always kind of like a crapshoot. You never really know when it's going to end up happening. It's the most stressful
thing ever in my life. Like, I haven't experienced that much anxiety in a long time.
It's anxiety inducing. So we come to find out the sellers had not signed the day before. So they didn't sign till like noon. So there was absolutely no way it was going to fund and record that day. And my clients had to be out of their apartment that day. And so I was able to call their moving company, like find out if they, tell them what was up, find out what their flexibility was going to be, if they had a truck, if they could do an overnight hold, if they had the flexibility to move them in the next day. And then while they were like checking on that, I plan B'd and like found a storage facility that was close to their new home, and like booked, like put a hold on a unit while I was waiting for the moving company to get back to me. And then when the moving company finally did get back to me and they were like, oh yeah, we can, you're gonna have to pay an overnight storage fee, and then you have to pay for a whole new move in the morning. And like, these people are first-time homebuyers. Like, they've spent every penny that they have purchasing this house. And anyway, so I was able to call them like with the bad news. There is no way this is going to fund and record tonight. It's not going to happen. You can't have the keys. So here, your moving company is going to hold the things overnight. They're going to move them in the morning. And here's a hotel room by your old house where you can stay. It has a kitchen, and you can bring your dogs there. And you can just, like, here's the reservation number. And I just was able to like make everything smooth for them so that when I had to tell them, like, there's this terrible news and they can instantly start feeling the crushing worry of the worst case scenario, I was already able to be like, and here is all of the solutions to all of your problems handed in a neat package so that you can just relax, because this is so stressful and you wouldn't have known that this was something that could even come up. And that's my responsibility to have told them that. And so I just was able to fix the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which is not something I've heard of realtors doing in the past.
No, I don't know of any realtor who's going to do that other than you. And on top of that, I think that you may not have caught it, but I think the thing that is the most stressful probably, or the most, I don't know if it's even the most stressful, but the most meaningful detail of that story, what do you think it is? What do you think I'm going to say, Kacie?
Probably the dogs.
The dogs. She knew it. Exactly. Yes. That's the most meaningful thing. Yep. Yes. Was that the cheapest thing, or was it the most expensive thing that she did for them? Not even remotely close, but the attention to detail of, and you can bring your dogs. That is what solidifies that client for, hey, I want Kacie to take care of me and all of my friends because she even thought about my dogs. Like that is that's the thing. That's the above and beyond, not just covering the costs of the storage and all the other moving costs, not just getting in a hotel room for them, not all that. It's the fact that she even thought about our dogs. Like that's the above and beyond. That's so incredible about Kacie. Okay. I mean, the other stuff is incredible, but I don't want to diminish the other stuff because that's the part that directly impacts you. And maybe your financial situation as a realtor, but it's the attention to detail that most people don't do. And I'm totally guilty of this, where it's like when I'm in that position, I don't think about every little detail as easily as Kacie does. Mm-hmm. And I've seen her do that multiple times in multiple different situations that have nothing to do with real estate, but it's part of who Kacie is because she understands transition. She understands the things that are worrying during transition and how to make somebody's life easier through transition. And it's the little things that seem like they're not that big of a deal, but are huge to that individual. And I love it. I love it. I love it. So let's say somebody wants to have one of these wonderful experiences of working with Kacie Thompson-Fuller. Where do they go to find out more about you, get in contact with you? And if you're in Utah or wherever you're licensed, I don't know where you're licensed, and you want her to help either buy or sell your home, she can help you. And it's in your best interest to let her help you, I believe. I can't recommend people because that goes against some other issues with my business licenses, but I think that she'd be a dang good candidate. And if she was buying and selling homes where I'm trying to live, I would use her. That's what I can say. So
thank you.
Yeah. Where do they get?
So you can find me I have Instagram and Facebook, and also I will soon have my own website, Thompson-Fuller Real Estate. It's not quite finished yet, but it is there. And then for my doula services, they can find me at sugarhousedoula.com.
Awesome. And if they want to join the La Leche League, where do they go?
If they want to join La Leche League, we mostly are on Instagram and Facebook. Our group name is La Leche League of Salt Lake.
I love it. Are there
and we provide
leagues?
There are. It is an international support group. Our Salt Lake group, we have about 8 leaders who help run the group, and we provide services to moms from breastfeeding newborn infants all the way up to people who breastfeed their toddlers. So
awesome. I love it. That's so cool. Okay. So definitely go check her out. We're going to get as many of those links in the show notes as possible here. Now, this is my 2 favorite sections. So this last section is called Legacy on Rapid Fire. 1 word, 1 sentence answers. We're going to go for it. Are you ready for Legacy on Rapid Fire?
I'm ready.
Perfect. What do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
My vigor.
My vigor.
I don't have enough of it.
Okay. Hey, that's good.
That's my word for 2021 is vigor.
Awesome. Love it. And what's the hardest thing you've ever accomplished?
The hardest thing I've ever accomplished was probably my breastfeeding relationships with my children. I tandem nursed. So I nursed the older daughter and the younger daughter for 6 months overlap. And that was real challenging. So that's my biggest accomplishment in life.
I cannot even imagine that. Good for you. I could not imagine it.
Not for everyone.
What's the greatest success at this point in your life?
Ooh. I'm real proud of my business right now. That's probably my greatest success. This year has been an incredible year of growth. So
I love that. And what do you think is one secret that you believe contributes to your success the most?
That's a good one. Probably my creativity, my ability to like anticipate people's needs and their reactions to them. And so then I can see what services I'll need to provide in order to help them with their transitions.
Yeah, I love that. I was just listening to, not listening. I decided to watch Star Wars 1, the first Star Wars, not the first one that came out, but Star Wars 1 with my little toddler and my baby, just because I get tired of like Disney animation stuff. I want to watch something more real. So I'm watching this show, and it was interesting because when they're looking at Anakin, they're like, well, why is he so good at what he does? It's because he was able to, through the Force, right, anticipate what was going to happen, where people were going to be, and maneuver around where they were going to be. So that forward anticipation, the Force is strong with you.
Oh, thank you.
Nice. Yeah. Anyways.
And also with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, that's a huge skill, and more people could benefit from that, having that in their life or having somebody in their life that's good at that. So what do you think is one book that you would recommend, one or two books you'd recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
Probably my favorite book from this last year has been Everything is Figure Outable by Marie Forleo. That book was incredible. I really liked it. So yeah, she's a badass. That
is a good book. There's in fact, when that book just came out, but do you know who Ed Milet is? Ed Milet, he has a podcast, and he interviewed her on his podcast. It's probably been a year plus, but it was a good podcast. That's where I first heard of the book and read it. It's a good book. I agree. Everybody, nice. I second that book. Go figure it out. It's not that difficult. You can figure out anything. Then here's my final question, my favorite question of the thing. This is, what legacy are you building? So we're going to pretend that you've died. We've moved on. Okay. 6 generations from now. So this is your great grandchildren. They're sitting around the kitchen table discussing what Kacie's life meant to them, to their family, and what impact you had on the world. What do you want them to be saying about your legacy 6 generations from now?
This is a really good question. I actually have thought about this a lot. I've heard you pose this question on your podcast, and I thought I had never even considered anyone besides like my maybe great grandchildren even remembering who I am. I just had never even occurred to me that is something that people experience. Like, I don't know who 6 generations back is in my family, mostly because, I mean, I know who 4 generations back are. They impacted where I live. But 6, I had never thought about that. So I really would like to, and I don't have any solid plans built out to make this legacy dream come true yet. But I would really like to be able to instill a love of property ownership, and whether that's like set up some sort of a perpetual fund that will help my descendants purchase properties. I think that sounds really cool. Even just be able to do a little bit for them.
Awesome. I love it. I was watching another show. I watch shows. I like watching TV. And so I was watching another show on Netflix called Medici. It's not for everybody, so if you have problems with
don't come at you.
Well, yeah, if you have problems with too much skin being shown on different individuals, it's not the whole show. There's snippets, but they still rate it MA for when it happens.
Okay.
So, but one of the things that's important is in like the third or fourth episode, the main guy, he's the head of the family. He's going to be killed because his rival in the city in Venice or Florence, I forget which city it was, but he had got the government to turn against him. And this guy's a banker, and so he's like, "Hey, I'm toast. I'm going to die." So he instructs all of his siblings and his wife on how to run the business and what they need to do to make sure this business continues to be the mega bank in that city. And the wife was like not having any of it. She did not want her husband to die. And he's like, "Look, we've got to learn to live beyond our lives." And that concept of like, are you currently living beyond your life, or are you just living for your life? And that's where I think they've said in that show that the essence of my podcast, my business, and what I believe as a core belief. But like, are you living beyond your life, or are you so selfish you're just living for your life? Right? He was completely comfortable dying because he was thinking of the long-term multi-generational dynasty, and that he was just a piece to play rather than him being the dynasty. And I think that sometimes it's valuable to say, hey, are you willing to play your part in the dynasty and live beyond your life? Or are you so stuck on it being you that you can't see past your lifetime?
Yeah, it's like that saying where they say you die twice, once when your body dies and once when the last time someone utters your name.
Yeah, it's true. So I just think that's why I love the question of this, because it's like, how are you living beyond your life? How are you intentionally creating a life that's going to last multi-generations, or an impact that's going to last multi-generations, and not just in your life? And maybe a lot of people come on and they say, well, I hope nobody remembers me. I hope that I'm forgotten and I'm just a piece of the tapestry, but that these concepts and these principles that I instill pass on. And that's the thing. It's like, you may not want to have your name remembered, and that's okay, but you're still having that impact and perpetuating a legacy of your own. So I love that. Thank you so much, Kacie, for taking the time out of your busy life and busy morning to be on our podcast today. I'm so grateful for you, and grateful for you in my life and what you represent, and that I can learn and grow from just watching you operate in your normal life and be who you are. It helps me become a better person. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.